that dying breed that still wear a wristwatch. There's something about carrying around your own personal piece of technology that's always appealed to me. I think I've worn one ever since I was 8 years old. Now, I've upped the technology stakes a little bit because I've now gone and got myself a smartwatch. This is the Omate TrueSmart. It's basically a self-contained, tiny Android smartphone that's been squashed down into something that can fit on a wrist. Even though it's undeniably chunky, I found the watch comfortable to wear. The watch itself is made out of metal, it doesn't weigh too much either. Behind this flap here, that's where your 3G micro SIM goes, and that's the microphone hole above there. On this side we've got two buttons that flank a 720p 3-megapixel camera. In the strap, that slot is the speaker, and below that, that lump is the GPS antenna. You can increase the memory in this. It comes with 8 gigs, but you can increase that by putting a micro SD card inside the back. Those 4 gold connectors connect up to a cradle which lets you attach it to USB for data transfer and charging. The screen is 1.54 inches square, resolution 240 by 240. I'll show you what the watch looks like in use now. So to wake it up, you press the top right button. That brings on the watch display, which will go off after a few seconds unless you drag down. That gets you into the applications, and you can scroll left and right through these by moving your finger across the center portion of the screen. Now you can put things into folders as well. You can see I've got 4 items in a folder here. That's just to tidy stuff up a little bit. Now I'll show you a couple of applications. An ideal thing for a watch like this would be something like Twitter. I downloaded this from the App Store. The reason that Twitter's particularly good, you can just read the little bit of information that's on here. Now it might not be that good if you want to click through and read the entire article on a screen like this, but for brief bits of information, something like this is ideal. You also might not want to reply as well, because the keyboard does get a little bit tiresome. I'll show you that later on. Now the observant amongst you might have noticed I closed the Twitter application by swiping in from the right hand side of the screen. That gesture is equivalent to pressing the back button. And the bottom right physical button is the same as pressing the home key. Now I'll show you the Google Maps application. This will give me an opportunity to use the keyboard as well. So let's try and type Tower Bridge into this. As you can see, I am capable of doing it on the keyboard, but it does take a lot of concentration and effort, and it's not quick. You wouldn't really want to try and type a long message into this. Just a couple of words is about the most I'd want to put into it. But as you can see, we've been able to get to Tower Bridge. Remember, this watch does have a GPS antenna in it, so it's the kind of thing that if you're out and about, you better make your way to different places. And as you can see here, I can also load up Street View, or in this case more like Bridge View. But lovely sunny day and not so much traffic there. Now let's show you what the phone's like. So I'll call up Tower Bridge. Not something I've done before. I hope there isn't a real person at the other end, so we'll just have a listen and see what happens.
Welcome to the Tower Bridge Exhibition Information Line. If you do not have a touch-tone phone, please hold until the end of this message and you'll be transferred to our contact centre.
I've also tried out a few calls to real people, and they said it sounded like I was on a normal phone. So as long as you don't mind standing in the street talking into your wrist, then you can use it as a phone. And of course you can play games with it like this, which is just as annoying on a watch as it is on everything else. Now one thing I did use it for that I found useful was to check train times. When I'm stood on the platform, I just want to see if my train's on time. It's quite easy just to look down at your wrist. And of course I can load up Chrome on this and go to any website I want, and as I showed on the previous video about this one, you can play embedded videos as well. But you don't really want to spend your time trying to read articles like that. One other thing you can do, you can play music on it, of course, out through the internal speaker if you want to annoy people, or over a Bluetooth headphone if you're less of an idiot. Now, if you're a glutton for punishment, this device is perfectly capable of playing back smooth video. The only problem is, of course, the screen's just much too small, and on top of that, it's square, so most things you watch are going to be letterboxed, and if you look at them at arm's length on a screen this size, it basically just looks like a moving postage stamp. I mean, it's a fun thing to show your friends, but it's not something that you really want to do seriously. Now, even though it's something that people aren't probably going to do, to test out the battery, I streamed YouTube video for a full hour over Wi-Fi on a fully charged battery, and after an hour it had reduced that battery down to 75%, which I didn't think was that bad. Now, the Omate doesn't come with any Google apps pre-installed, but once you've downloaded the Play Store from the App Store that's on there, then the world's your oyster. Now, of course, you've got a load of applications here, but not all of them are going to work on a screen this small. For example, here's a problem that I had in Twitter. I could type, but I couldn't see what I was typing because it was just squashed off the top of the screen there, and I couldn't scroll it up to see it any clearer. And something like Netflix, as soon as I get the keyboard on, there's no way to sign into it. So really you need applications that are designed for a screen this small. And of course, instead of keyboards, you can always use something like voice search. What's Big Ben? But I've found the best thing for a watch-sized screen have been things that you don't have to enter any information into. They're just things that you use to pull information. For example, RSS readers. I'm always reading news articles on RSS readers, and it's a quick way of just looking at the headlines. But when it comes to the actual article again, you're probably better reading that on a larger screen. Another good application for a smartwatch is Shazam. That's the music identification software. Whenever you hear something you're not quite sure what it is and you're in a shop or whatever, just press the button and it'll tell you the name of the track. I'll just demonstrate flipping between recently opened applications. Hold down the bottom right hand button and you can see them all on the screen. You can jump to any one you want, and if you want to close any of them you can just fling them off to the left. Now of course not everything works perfectly. Someone suggested on the preview video I did that it'd be great if they had a barcode scanner on this. So I downloaded one, but unfortunately it doesn't work because the camera in this is not autofocus. So once you've got the barcode near enough, it's too blurry for the scanner to read it. In fact, that camera is a bit of a mixed bag. It will take 720p 30 video and 3 megapixel stills that are upscaled to 5 megapixel, but as somebody mentioned on the other video, the only person that could really benefit from a camera at that angle would be Superman to take POV shots, because it's a bit awkward for anyone else. As you can see, I've got my hand in shot here. The application itself also has a tendency to crash out to the main menu when you take a still photo, as it's done there, but of course it's just an application. Hopefully a better one will come along soon. Let me show you some video that I took with this. So the camera quality isn't great. It's 720p 30, but it's a pretty soft 720p 30. As you can see from this shot here, you can't really read much of the writing opposite. I'll also show you some footage that I took in a darker environment so you can see how the camera would cope in low light. But anyone thinking of using this as some kind of spy camera, they can forget that idea just because of the way the camera's pointed on the wrist. If you point your fist in someone's face, they're going to notice it. If you want to install a micro SIM in the watch, and it'd be a shame not to given the fact it's got the SIM card slot, you have to undo this panel on the side here. The screwdriver is supplied inside the box. It's a little bit fiddly. You just take it apart, and inside there is a rubber seal. That's to give it water resistance. It's not waterproof, but that's water resistance. And then you put your micro SIM in there. It's a spring-loaded slot, a lot like a micro SD card slot. You push it down and it clicks into place, and then you reassemble it. These screws are tiny. You really wouldn't want to lose those, but you don't have to do this often. You just have to do it the once unless you want to take out that SIM all the time, which is something that I don't do. I am putting a micro SD card extended memory in this, 16 gigs. It comes with 8 gigs built in, but by taking the back off to do this, I've invalidated the warranty. Now the battery is 600 milliamp hours. That's been enough to last me a full day of light usage. This isn't the kind of thing you look at for hours on end. You just look at an email and then switch it off again. So it's lasted me a full day of light use. I've charged it every evening in this device. This is a little sort of docking station type thing. Those pins in the back attached to the connectors on the back of the watch, and basically give the watch a micro USB port, which is on the side of this here. You plug that into there, you charge it up through that, and you also transfer data on and off the watch. But whilst it's in there, you can't turn the watch on or off, which is a bit restrictive. Now, I've been using this watch for a couple of weeks, and I've got a bit of experience with different conditions. One thing I did notice, it's pretty hard to read that display when you're outdoors. The sun makes the screen reflective and quite dark as well. It's hard to see what you're doing a lot of the time. It's a bit annoying having to press a button to see a watch display. It feels like it's 1979 all over again. Now you can change that watch display between different faces, get your favourite, but it all seems a little bit academic because for the vast majority of the time the watch display is going to be completely blank, and it always looks a bit weird having something dark and blank on your wrist like this. In fact, notifications don't even come through on the screen when it's off. There is a vibration in the back of it, but to see a notification you have to switch it on, swipe down again to get to the top, and there you can see your notifications or your email or whatever's popped up on there. I'd like it to have shown through on the main screen. Maybe it's supposed to do it, but I can't figure it out. You can also get to some other shortcuts while you're in this menu as well. And whilst I haven't tried it myself, apparently companion mode, where it's supposed to link up to an existing smartphone, doesn't work at present. Now I've had this issue where it's got into this boot menu, but I can't select any of the options to boot it up because the top button didn't seem to do anything. The only way I got out of that was to unscrew the back and remove the battery. Now things like that might be improved with firmware updates, and the watch does have the ability to do wireless over-the-air updates, so fingers crossed that any of the issues I'm experiencing that can be fixed will be fixed in time. Of course, there's still the issue of whether there's any point having a smartwatch in the first place. Let me show you how things have worked out for me. My mobile usage is about 80% tablet, 20% smartphone. Ever since the Omate TrueSmart came around, that's changed slightly. Still 80% tablet, but now 15% phone and 5% TrueSmart. So whilst it's not essential, I've used it for things like checking train times and stuff like that I showed you before. A phone I still use for listening to music an awful lot and reading emails, and of course a tablet, RSS feeds, heavy text items, video, typing, all that kind of stuff. Now, whilst I managed to find some use for the TrueSmart, that's probably because I've already got it. If you hadn't got one already, I'm not too sure of the need to have a smartwatch. In fact, I'm less sure now than I was before I owned one. I think a smartphone does pretty much everything better, other than of course fit on your wrist, but to fit on your wrist the screen has to be too small for most uses. Now if you head over to Wikipedia, you'll find an article about the Omate TrueSmart. There's a lot of useful information in there, but I'd take some of it with a big pinch of salt because it seems to have been written by some very angry and negative people that think they've been hard done by. They don't seem to be aware that when you back something on Kickstarter, it doesn't always turn out according to plan, and on quite a lot of occasions it doesn't seem to turn out at all. I don't think Omate have done a bad job with the TrueSmart at all. Now when I took the gamble of being an early Kickstarter backer, I got the watch for $199 US plus $15 postage and packing, all in. Current rates £127. That's not bad at all, I don't think. Now if you wanted to get hold of one now, you're going to have difficulty. The Omate website says they're sold out of pre-orders and the price of those was going to be $299. So whilst I'm less convinced than ever that there's any need to have a smartwatch in my life, I do still quite like this one and I'm going to keep wearing it, at least until something better turns up. So that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.